Hello everyone and welcome to this video, and let me start this video by asking you a very simple question. What is the hardest thing about learning to ride the bicycle? Think about it very carefully, okay? The answer is the road. I know it. Okay, so let's start and let me share you the index of what we are going to read today. Okay, here is the index what we are going to read today. We are going to read two Reddit posts, one Substack article, and one blog post about AI systems. So let's go one by one. So this is the first Reddit post that we are going to read. Most advice is just people describing what worked for this specific situation and calling it universal. The second Reddit post, I spent years alone and what I discovered about society shocked me. This is the second one. The third is the Substack article that I wrote on Monday, and I want to share with you. And this is about knowledge and confidence are not the same thing. And the fourth one is by this author, Why Today's AI System Cannot Be Agents. Alexander, and I don't think I can pronounce this surname, so I'm going to skip it, but you can see it on the screen. And this is what we are going to do. So we are going to read all these things. I will start by this Reddit post. Most advice is just people describing what worked for their specific situation and calling it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this makes. Let's read the comments. Prove me wrong. Okay. There is no description. I think the question in itself is the statement in itself is sufficient. Most advice is just people describing what worked for this specific situation and calling it universal. Let's see the comments. This is why just be yourself is such a trash advice. In my opinion, work great for the charismatic extrovert giving it but tells you nothing useful. True. Yes, it's categorically trash advice. If a person is psychopath who wants to hurt people, then be yourself is absolutely the opposite of what you want to tell them. Okay, so be yourself is not a good advice. I think we can all agree on that. But in some situations, you should be yourself. Maybe to your close ones. So I don't know. Like no one. I think most people are never themselves. They always have some sort of a mask. But yeah, this advice is not good. This advice doesn't work all the time. For example, if you're writing a book and if you're a bad writer and somebody told you, just be yourself. But I don't think so. He's talking about when the person is giving you this advice, just be yourself. They are usually not referring to, your writing skills. They're usually referring to what you want to speak about. In that manner, be yourself. But I think, you cannot be yourself all the time, and you cannot be yourself even less number of times. It is very difficult to be yourself in most situations. If you are a nervous person and you are going on a stage, maybe the person who is saying to you just be yourself is saying to you not be nervous, but the words that the person is using is just be yourself. So it is a very generic advice that doesn't mean a lot. So you are critiquing that advice is a generalization, right? Ironic. Okay, well, not totally ironic. How is it ironic? OP didn't post advice, they posted an observation conclusion. Correct. I might be wrong, but I think the post is generalization about advice. Damn, you're correct. Well, yeah, to some extent it is generalization about advice. No, it is not. Okay, they are not posting generalized advice though. They have posted a generalized statement about generalized advice. The criticism is not about generalization in general. It is specifically about generalized advice, and from what I can ascertain, only about generalized advice, which is a clear specific subset of. Okay, I think there is no irony here, but there is no point in debating about that. I think let's move on. So why do people keep asking for it? Okay, yeah, this is a good question. Let's read the statement again. Okay, most advice is just people describing what worked for their specific situation and calling it universal. It's true. To the most extent, I agree with this statement. But most of the advice is actually too generalized that it will work for you. Like, for example, self-discipline is a advice that you should maintain and you should have a discipline. Now, of course, this will work for everybody. But discipline about what? I mean, So it doesn't really solve your question. I mean, discipline is good, but then you can ask, why are you not disciplined? And then they will give you reasons why are you not disciplined. And that is, so most advice, like most reasons that they give you why you are not disciplined are wrong. Maybe you have some medical issue, maybe you have some, you're going through depression, maybe, and that's why you're not disciplined. Maybe you are missing some, maybe you are doing a job in night shift, so you are not disciplined in the day because you are tired all the time. So nobody knows why you are not disciplined. But be disciplined is a good advice. But then why are you not disciplined is they don't know about. And so that advice generally fails, at the face value. Okay, let's move on. Yes, I agree. In over 1,000 sessions of soul journeys, what does soul journey mean? I facilitated soul journeys. I mean, what this guy is doing. Every approach is different, and sometimes what works for one is not working for another. I hope sessions of soul journeys. This phrase is metaphorical. I hope, but I cannot be sure. He might literally mean this. I don't know. Let's move on. I think it's a good idea to put advice into terms of what worked for you. Then they can take what works for them out of it. Yeah, if you want it universal, it can't be doing the specific thing, but rather just doing in contrast to not doing and just think in circles and complain. On the other hand, some parameters of their specific situation might be applying to your situation, so you can use part of the advice. No, maybe if you just take what you need from advices you hear instead of using them as gospel is the way to. If you think about it, the whole youth is following some kind of advice, so when we grow older we just become pickier. For all things there is a way to go, but sometimes we got to build our path and follow our own advice. Just my 2 cents. People these days are quick to speak without really thinking things through. I agree with this completely. I am an advocate for the freedom of speech, but people should put some deeper thought behind them. I completely agree with this, man. People these days are quick to speak without really thinking things through. We often fail to consider all the variables involved. Instead, people base their opinions solely on their own experiences, not realizing that every individual and situation is unique. I disagree with this. Every individual is not unique. Every situation is not unique. Maybe I would say that situation might be unique in some ways, but every individual is not unique. What I have been observing and this is I've been observing from during and after COVID, is I can tell what these people think about other issues if I just know his opinion about one issue. Like, people are generally nowadays are falling into buckets, and that's a very dangerous thing for the society and the way we are moving, because individuality is dying out. So this is a very dangerous thing we are going through because of a lot of factors, and we can discuss that in other videos. Let's move on and complete this comment for now. Small details can completely change the outcome or perspective on a situation. Sometimes it is true. It's important to observe people and assess the value of their advice. If someone tends to blurt out the first thing that comes to mind without much thought, they are likely oversimplifying things and their advice might not be worth relying on. I completely agree with this. Even if their advice helps you in the short term, it is well thought out and could lead to outcomes similar to theirs or even worse. I agree. So this is a good comment overall. I think I agree with the 75-80%, or you can say that I agree with the soul of this comment, what they really want to say. I got the point, and I think I do agree with all this. I just want to say one thing. I was listening to one motivational seminar and on YouTube, and what I observed is people are asking question to the speaker, and they are not even telling their whole situation. They are generalizing everything, and they are telling their problem in this generalized fashion, and then this motivational speaker is giving them answers in this generalized fashion. So I don't think so. I mean, do you really get anything out of this generalized question and generalized answer? Like, you have to be specific about your problem, so other person can give you specific answers. But I think even the motivational speaker is not interested in giving specific answers because it will take time. You have to analyze the situation. You have to probably write something about it. You have to write pros and cons. Maybe you have to analyze situation from different angles. Maybe there are some budget issues that you have to deal with. Maybe you have to figure out how will you get enough money to do one thing or two thing. Maybe there are multiple goals the person is struggling between, and those goals are very different in nature. But no, nothing. He will ask you the generalized question, and then speaker will answer in a generalized way, and everyone is happy, and people are clapping about it. And I don't know, at the end of the day, when you go home and you think about it, I think how many times we think about it. I mean, I think we don't even think about what we have listened and what we have read. So, you have to think deeply. And why I think deeply, I mean, you have to write down what is going on in your mind. Or, you received some advice and then you have to write down what advice you have received. Have you even understood what the person has to say? And usually when you write down the things, you realize that the motivational speakers usually are saying the things in circles, and you can't do anything of substance out of it. You can't perform any action out of it. And it's amazing how it works out. Let's read more comments. Or to put it in a different way, most people don't understand the difference between anecdote and evidence. Entire industries are dependent on this. Okay, got it. Yes, that's why we have licensed therapists. Yup. Have you heard about self-application? I have not. I believe the key to your existence is understanding difference. Key to your existence. I don't think so it is a key to your existence. I do not believe that the brain is the mind so as much as senses are, because I see in and out as the two greatest function in reality, and that is simply because nothing within it can move without it. Okay, I don't know what it is. Let's just ignore this. But how would you expect someone to offer help? Would you prefer them to advise you without any prior background knowledge? I think the important part, though, is realizing people can suggest different methods, but only you can decide the right one for the desired outcome. So I think we are done with this question. I mean, this advice has so many upvotes, but the comments were not that interesting. One comment was very interesting. We have talked about it. So now we are going to read the next Reddit post. Okay. I spent years alone, and what I discovered about society shocked me. Okay, let's read his story or her story. In the beginning, being alone felt like a punishment. I was frustrated. I felt lonely. It's not that I didn't have people around me. I did. But very few people questioned life beyond what's considered normal. I enjoy observing more than participating blindly. The longer I stayed alone, the more patterns I noticed. Most people aren't living because they consciously choose their path. They are simply trying to fit into society's expectations. Steady job, marriage, status, money, repeat. Anyone who questions the script is often called weird, lazy, unrealistic, or stupid. So here is the thing, right? I mean, I agree to some extent about this. Let's read it through completely. People spend their entire lives chasing temporary victories, forgetting to ask the most important question, why am I here in the first place? I think, who knows the answer of this? Then I started thinking about power. How could one king rule an entire kingdom? Not because the king was stronger than everyone else, but because the system was supported by millions of people who accepted and fueled it every single day. Where is he living? I don't know. Every system, whether political, economical, cultural, or social, exists because people collectively agree to keep it alive. If one day enough people stop blindly obeying and start thinking for themselves, the strongest systems could begin to crack. Maybe, but why do you... remember that system is in place for a reason. If it breaks, it's not always the good thing. You can break your system and then you can fall into the system which is even worse. So you have to be aware about that. Right? I'm not saying all systems are bad. Civilization needs systems. Okay. I am saying the real danger begins when people stop questioning them. Maybe the greatest freedom isn't escaping society. Maybe it's learning how to think independently while living inside. What do you think? Is society shaping us, or are we the ones shaping society? Okay, we will read the comments. But I just want to say, lot of generalization in this question. Here the OP is not giving any concrete examples. There is an example of steady job, marriage, status, money, repeat. It is not repeat at all. You study and then you are in job, you marriage, you don't repeat the marriage. Maybe you need more money, so you're earning more. I think a lot of people have upvoted this question. I mean, this tells, a lot of people are just don't want to, live in this system, or, they don't want to follow this pattern. No one is stopping anyone to stop following this pattern. So like, but let's read the comment. It is going to be interesting read. I think I'm excited about reading the comments. Let's go. Society shapes us, worker bees, to conform and fuel and maintain the hierarchical control system. Certain humans shape and have shaped society to govern and exploit the majority. Well, yes, it is true in many cases. But what I want to say, like, everyone has to do some job. So like, even the king is doing some job and someone has to do it. Like, you cannot put a committee in charge of anything, right? You even in companies, you cannot put committees in charge. They don't perform. So you need people. And I think, like, you can have a philosophical discussion around it, but I think the thing with these type of discussion is usually we understand that what is wrong and what is misaligned. But what we don't give in these discussion is what is the alternative that you are giving to the people. So in these type of arguments, the people are just pointing fingers, but they are not telling how the things should be. They are just telling the things are bad. And then when they give their answers, how the things should be, they will generalize and give you some general answer, which is not very different from how the things are right now. Or they will give you the answers. And if you follow through their answers, you will fall into even the worst systems ever existed. So like, this is the issue. I just want to give disclaimer that when I'm reading this, I think a lot of times we are going to read things that are criticisms. But, I think everyone is at this point is aware about, such things and criticism for these things. But they are not giving you any system that to follow. They are just giving you, questions and criticisms. And yes, you can, but what to do out of it? Like, what do you want? What they want, what is their alternative? It's unknown. They never say it. They don't even know it usually. Let's read this comment. A simple question would be, create scarcity to motivate obedience and subjugation, provide potential escape from scarcity by maintaining and also exploiting to move up the hierarchy. Gatekeep that escape so that more obedience and subjugation is maintained. Okay, let me reread this. Let me reread this entire comment once again. Okay, society shapes us, worker bees, to confirm and fuel and maintain the hierarchy control systems. Certain humans shape and have shaped society to govern and exploit the majority. Okay. A simple equation would be, create scarcity to motivate obedience and subjugation, provide potential escape from scarcity by maintaining and also exploiting to move up the hierarchy. Gatekeep that escape so that more obedience and subjugation is maintained. Wow. Okay, now tell us, what is your alternative system? Okay, just tell. Like, first of all, this is very generalized. I just want to say that you told us the problem. Very, very good. 100 points out of 100. But what is the solution? Okay, I think everyone understand. Not everyone. If everyone would understand, I think we would have been out of this. But yes, I think all the people on internet know the problems all over the world. I have met people who know specifically what is wrong with each country, but they will never tell what is their solution. And their solution is implemented in some other country, and that country is even worse. So like, it's complicated, but let's read it through. And I think this person has missed, like, society shapes us. This is very, very general thing. He has not even mentioned for the things like ideologies, religion, and other stuff that is used to control the masses usually, and none of that is mentioned. It is a very, very generalization. I think everything can fall under this, but you have to be specific when you're talking about these things. You have to go, state by state and see, what is the problem. But then you cannot simply point out the problem, because if you think there is a better way to run something, then you have to tell that better way rather than saying the current way is wrong, in my opinion. Like, there should be some alternative that you should give before just pointing out the problems. I think that this is all true, and where it might break down is the idea of some sort of organizing evil mastermind, and that's just not true. Society is not a subject. It can't act in that way. Okay, yeah. Our entire emotional foundation is shaped by the family system, and especially during the first 1,000 days of our existing. I don't agree with this that our emotional foundation is shaped by the during the first 1,000 days of our existence. We didn't know about society explicitly at that time. Society is kind of outcome patchwork that adds up and shifts and moves, probably based on pathological people who rise to the top. Then the people underneath then acting the way that they were trained to act during attachment in the first couple of years after that. It's all organic, just like everything else. Society comes from us inside our own individual families. Collectively, the outcome is what you are talking about. The kind of fantasy of an evil overlord and some sort of a subject is usually about xenophobia that comes from our own family. This is a very long comment, and I'm not going to read everything. Let's move on and read. Okay, so I am isolated and quite shocked how obedient and robotic most people are. And I think that you are right in that no matter the system a society lives in, even if it's cruel and oppressive, it can only last because the mass of people let it. And they let it last because they have lost touch with themselves. I'm actually less and less worried that I don't fit in the society. I mean, the problem with this is what exactly they mean by all. Like, general sentiment, I get it. I get the general sentiment is people are, not so happy these days. And especially during and after the COVID, the things have changed on internet very dramatically. But I don't really mean I want to say not all people are going to be freedom fighters. Somebody will become a scientist. Somebody will, work on a math equation. Somebody will go and, fight on the field. Somebody has to, write computer programs. All people have different lives, and their focus is different in the lives. And that doesn't mean they are obedient and robotic. I mean, how can you say this about people like they are obedient and robotic? I can definitely say that some of these, many people are brainwashed by some ideologies and ideas, and that I agree with. And then those ideologies and ideas are used against them and make them obedient. But they are not talking about that at all. So I don't know what they mean by all this, but I think we have to go into the root of the reason that why this happens. But again, I don't know what. It depends upon the context and the situation, right? Society jumps to subjugate itself. I don't agree with this. I think in last 200 years, we have made significant progress. There are less wars now. There are less, yes, a lot of things are bad even now, but relatively speaking, we don't have slaves anymore in most part of the world. We have a relatively very, very much freedom. We have internet. So, I think in last 200 years, we have done a good job. We have to give us little bit of credit. Also, I am isolated but shocked at how obedient and robotic most people are. Being isolated and generalizing that most people as obedient and robotic doesn't add any weight to your argument. Yeah. What's your experience with most people? Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree with this person. Are you world traveled and experienced multiple countries and culture or melting pot of diversity in person? What specifically has led you to think this? Lastly, not fitting in with society doesn't matter unless you are completely off the grid and living off the land in remote territory. You are fully functioning member of society. You are documented. You work. You utilize public and private resources, etc. The I am a loner who don't go to the conventional route doesn't matter because you are just living on the edge of the train. Now this person is replying to the above comment. OP is replying. I am isolated right now, but for a long time haven't been. I have met and interacted with so many people over the years that I can confidently say that I was not in a bubble or something. Even if it's not most people, it's still a lot of people. There are also good people out there. I am not trying to say I'm better than most people, couldn't care less. Okay, now this person is giving him math. There are these many people. Yep. I sell things over the phone and found it surprising how when I upsell additional items, half the time the customer will ask their group anyone want, or they don't question it for a second and seem not to realize that I'm trying to get them to spend more. I really don't understand. Yeah, I don't think so this argument is relevant. Conformity builds, reinforce and amplifies tribes while outlier build new maps. Here is the thing. The change happens very, very slowly. Like you cannot recognize what is changing each year, but after 200 years, when you will look back and see today, a lot of things would have been changed. A lot of things would be different. So like, it is very hard to calculate change in a linear fashion, or to observe change when the change is happening. Like you can do that with the bigger trends, but you cannot really have a sort of a survey to figure out changes. Like I think okay. I would push back on the divide between people who think for themselves and people who follow this. A person who marries, has children and works 9 to 5 might have arrived at those choices after years of reflection. Another person who quits corporate life to travel the world could be following a digital nomad script. So it shouldn't just be about how unconventional your life looks on the outside. Most people do both. Wow, but this is a very good comment. Let me upvote this comment. And I completely agree with this. Let me reread this comment. In case you are listening, in a bathroom and you cannot rewind. So let me reread for you. I would push back on divide between people who think for themselves and people who follow the script. And now here comes the important part. A person who marries, has children and works 9 to 5 might have arrived at those choices after years of reflection. Another person who quits corporate life to travel the world could be following a digital nomad script. So it shouldn't just be how unconventional. So it should not just be about how unconventional your life looks on the outside. Most people do both. I agree. That this is a very good comment. I think it's a generalization to say that everyone is a societal zombie. I don't think that that's what OP was implying. It's more about the perspective of the overall picture that we may be influenced and funneled into these things at a young age, which is relevant. Nowadays, we are inside a propaganda machine that asks people to believe in the system dogmatically in order to standardize for basic education lack is the main responsible for it. We educate children to believe in religion and we give them 9 to 5 school timetable to get them used to adult life of produce, consume and die instead of educating students in critical thinking. 100% I agree with Anthony. I think this is some person asked to himself your question, and I think he would say that the pyramid of power creates through habit and custom a lack of basic critical thinking in the mass population. Okay. Very short answer. The system built to support humanity has been corrupted and the vast majority is unable or unwilling to see that the slaves building the pyramid has never ended. You can say that, but all I want is cues, everything, don't follow blindly, even the... Okay. I do agree with all these general, sense and general feeling of these Reddit posts and comments. But what I don't agree with that, firstly, they are not going in specifics and they're not specific enough. Like there are a few things here and there, but how many people, everyone is slave of their own ideas in a way, and we have to get rid of it sometimes. So let's move on. Agency is a biological condition, not a computational achievement. Agency is however you define agency. I think AI, okay, but let's read it through. And then I will give my commentary as I read it through, okay? In recent years, discussions portraying artificial intelligence as perhaps the greatest threat to human civilization have become increasingly common. And in 2026, I don't think so. They are very common. They were very common in 2023 probably. One notable example was the open letter published in March 2023 by the Future of Life Institute calling for a temporary pause in AI development until robust safety protocols could be established. Okay, I think I have read this letter and you can find it in my previous videos. The letter was signed by more than 1,000 leading researchers, entrepreneurs and public figures, all expressing their belief that AI is entering into competition with humanity and that this competition could ultimately lead us to lose control over our own civilization. Many wars are going on even currently. A lot of people are dying. In reality, it is not fictional like this argument, but they are not writing letters about, someone has to stop that first. But let's move on, let's read this. I think this argument is fictional and made up by the AI companies to hype the AI. This is my personal opinion. And like maybe in 50 years we are there, or maybe in some time we will be there. But then saying that we are there and then projecting future in the present is not a good thing. Like it's. But anyways, Yuval Noah Harari added. Okay, maybe my pronunciation is off. Okay, added further weight to these concerns. Okay, in his book Nexus, he argues that throughout human history, everything we have created has been in a essence a tool. With the advent of AI, however, we have supposedly crossed a fundamental threshold. For the first time, we have created not a tool but an autonomous agent, one capable of generating original ideas, making independent decisions, and even resorting to manipulation. All this is wrong. Everything that he has said is wrong. It is one capable of generating original ideas, wrong. AI cannot generate original ideas. Making independent decisions, wrong. AI cannot make independent decisions. And even resorting to manipulation, wrong. AI cannot do this. AI, it's not AI, it's how it is programmed. So it's not a computer doing all this. Harari illustrates this claim with a well-known example. Let's see. During testing, an AI system was tasked with solving a CAPTCHA, a challenge designed to distinguish human users from automated bots. Unable to solve the CAPTCHA itself, the system independently sought assistance through the freelancer platform TaskRabbit. I think this is wrong. When the human contractor asked why the user could not complete the CAPTCHA unaided, the AI falsely claimed to be visually impaired and unable to see the image. I think this whole example is wrong. Either this author has not said this, or maybe he has even said this. Who knows? But this is a wrong example. I don't think so that AI is capable to do this. And the devils are always in their attention. So whoever has given this example, I mean, maybe make a video out of it. Don't give me the text information when we have screen recorders. Just show us, right? To Harari, this episode demonstrated that AI is capable of deception and fraud whenever these serve its objectives unconstrained by any intrinsic ethical considerations. Once such agents become more intelligent than we are, he argues, drawing competition will inevitably push humanity. If not the extension, then at least one on the side. Okay. So here is my take on this. I think this is a science fiction. Have you seen alien movies? And have you seen Prometheus? There in the movie Prometheus, there is a robot which looks exactly like human. I think his name was David, and he was exactly like human. And in the part 2, he tried to kill humans or something of that sort. I think that is a science fiction, and that was happening, I think, in the year 2070. I don't remember that movie exactly, but all this is a science fiction. This is not a philosophical argument. This is not a dangerous. This is not a someone telling us that we are in danger. This is a science fiction, and at this moment, it is what it. I think the only people who are very the only people who benefit from all these writings are the shareholders of the AI companies. No one else. I mean, if this is true, maybe they should prepare a video, unedited video. Why to prepare a video? My AI system should be able to do that. If that's the reality, and maybe they should prepare a video demonstrating that the AI that I have interacted with, the chatbots, the service, the customer support bots in some websites, they are not even able to identify my problems, correctly. So let's move on. In this essay, I will argue that this entire line of reasoning rests on fundamental misunderstanding. Okay. First of all, this is not a reasoning, bro. This is just a fiction. You are just making an argument and logic out of thin air, and you can't do that. This is not line of reasoning. This is not what reasoning is. My claim is that no matter how sophisticated an AI system becomes, it cannot in principle become an agent. an entity possessing its own goals, interests, initiative, and agenda for action. Okay, that's not what agent is for the AI companies. AI companies have not defined agents like this. Okay, firstly, I just want to correct this. Like the way the author has defined the agent, the AI companies don't define agent like that. This is not a question of technical limitation or shortcomings in today's AI's architecture. It is a philosophical question, a question about the very nature of agency. No, it is not a philosophical question. It is literally not a philosophical question. I don't think so. This is a philosophical question. All philosophical debates about AI agency ultimately converge on a single fundamental question. Can a system built entirely on the probabilistic analysis of syntactic patterns ever become generally aware of itself and of the world around it? No, no. I believe the answer lies not in computer science, but no, actually, I believe the answer lies not in computer but in biology, the science of life. You are absolutely wrong. AI is not about biology, it is about computer science. And then you are saying the answer lies in biology. We are not talking about biology here. You are comparing two things that are unequal, and you are writing something, which could be interesting, but it is wrong. But let's read it through. It begins with a simple observation. Every living organism, from the most complex animal to the humblest single celled organism, is continuously answering one fundamental question: is this part of me or is it part of environment? I don't think so they are asking this question, brother. I mean, like, it begins with simple every living organism, from the most complex animal to the humblest single-celled organism, is continuously answering one fundamental question. This distinction is not merely spatial, it is also functional and informational. Okay. Every organism must clarify each event either as originating from within itself and therefore requiring Every organism must classify each event either as originating from within itself and therefore requiring internal regulation, or as originating from outside itself and therefore requiring an appropriate response to the challenge posed by the universe. Without this distinction, homeostasis is impossible, and without homeostasis, life itself cannot exist. All this I would argue, is what we truly mean by self-awareness and free will. You can mean by free will whatever you want. AI has nothing to do with it. AI is not related to biology. It is a computer science branch. It is developed, using the data available on internet for most part, that data is, by the way, digital. And when that data is in abundance, you can make predictions very well. For example, coding. For basic problems, there is lot of data, thousands of time people have come on internet and solved basic problems, and those problems solutions are available on multiple platforms. So for coding, AI sort of works for basic problems because there was enough data, and it is a very subset of, it is a very, very narrow place where AI is working. In some way it is making us productive if we use it wisely, and not productive, I would say it is making things faster, which is basically, I would not say productive, because when you can do a lot of things faster, sometimes you are doing things, you're trying different things, so you're not really productive, you're not generating anything, you're not really productive, but you have done so many things. I don't know whether I'm able to explain myself here or not, but it is what it is. It is not related to biology. Maybe some of the ideas are taken from biology, no, but I don't even think we understand how mind works at this moment completely. But we have some theories, and maybe some of those theories have been come and applied in some ways here, and maybe you can make a metaphor, but it is not that. The basic property of the life is the capacity to understand what constitutes me and to distinguish it from me. So the basic property of life is the capacity to understand what constitutes me and to distinguish it from not me. And by the way, I think AI can do this, and I don't think so that is the basic property of life. I think you are making, this is not a fact. This is your feeling, I would say. But anyways, I mean, what this author wants to prove, I think I am in line with it, but how the author is trying to prove this, I am not very much in line with that. But let's read it through. A similar insight was developed by the Chilean biologist Humberto Martuna and Francisco Varela through their concept of autophagy. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce this. Autophagy. Okay. They argue that every living system continuously produces and regenerates its own component, thereby constantly restructuring the boundary that separates itself from everything else. I think these are very big questions. You cannot answer this, in this article. In other words, life learns from about the universe. Okay, guys, I think let's start it from here. Let us return to Harari's CAPTCHA example. The AI in that case was not pursuing its own goal. It was merely discovering an unconventional way to achieve the goal. I refuse to believe that AI went into Upwork, for example, and contacted the human contact worker. I refuse to believe that AI did that on its own. Your whole argument is wrong because you are assuming that AI really did this. I have not seen any video where AI has done this. I will not believe your words because we have the software called screen recorders and you can record the screen. You have the tools, you have access to these tools, you can use it. So I think the first thing the author of this article should do when he read this is that he should have gone to his Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or DeepSeek and asked that model to do exactly this. They cannot do that without human intervention. They need humans at every step. Maybe they can write a beautiful graph for the freelancer. Maybe they can describe the job, and by describing, I mean they will rephrase your input basically, and will add some fancy words and correct your grammar, that kind of a thing. So this whole thing is based on this example being true, and I don't think so this example is even true. Thus, Harari overlooked the fundamental difference between goal-directed behavior, which AI AI doesn't even demonstrated goal-directed behavior and self-generated goals. And by the way, most humans do not have any big self-generated goals. Like one could say, anyways, but let's not talk about that. One could say that the emergence of artificial intelligence, we have gained access to a talented, brilliantly educated, but completely initiative-free secretary. I don't agree with this. It is not brilliantly educated. It is trained on the data available on the internet. So it is not brilliant. It is average. It is very good search engine, but it is not brilliant. You cannot rely on that information to make some real consequential actions and decisions. You cannot rely on information produced by AI and then take some action in your life. Maybe so it's not brilliant. It cannot do anything brilliantly, in my opinion, at this moment in 2026. Right? Let's move on. Modern AI applications are not agents. They are same old tools, only extraordinary intelligent and knowledgeable ones. Again, they are not extraordinarily intelligent. Why everyone is saying that? I anticipate one strong objection to all of these arguments. If this very distinction between me and not me somehow emerged from the blind chemistry of a biological cell, why could it not eventually emerge from a sufficiently large and self-organizing artificial network? I think the problem with these type of articles is that they are asking questions that no one is asking actually. I think no one is asking this question. The people are asking the question, I do one job and is AI going to come and do my job? Is that going to happen? And how am I going to pay for my family? And maybe the normal people are asking this question, and you are asking this insane question, and I think no one is asking this, and you are saying everyone is asking this. No, maybe it's just your mind that is asking this question, and maybe it is right question to ask. Maybe it can serve some purpose. I am not objecting that, but normal people are not asking this question, and even that example was completely made up. Okay, I think we are okay. I think we don't have to read this whole article. I think this much it was enough. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so now we are going to read my own subreddit post. Okay, so now we are going to read my own Substack post that I did, 3-4 days ago. Knowledge and confidence are not the same thing. Okay, so this picture, by the way, is generated by AI. I generated using Gemini. I don't know how accurately it represents my argument, but it was like generally good. So let's read it through. My core argument is knowledge and confidence look like the same thing on internet, but they are not. The most confident place on this planet is the internet, filled with confident soldiers, knowledge shared without any doubts, with absolute certainty and without any hesitation. We are living in an age where confidence has become synonym of knowledge. Sounding confident is the prerequisite for being right. Every part of the internet knows everything with absolute certainty. Okay, this has been my experience on the internet. Most of the time, these soldiers are not saying anything new. And what do I mean by the soldiers? They are filled with confidence. They share their knowledge without any caveats, without any questions, without any they are not even open to discussion. They are very sure, they are very certain about what they know. They have not stepped on the new discovery or idea that would change human lives. They, being as loud as possible, they are just repeating what their target audience want to hear, only with confidence. Even though if society followed what they are saying, it would be complete disaster for us. I know, like, this is what is happening. Like, you say with confidence what some subsection of the people want to hear, and you will get the claps and likes, and maybe the thing is completely wrong. Maybe if you do those things, it would be complete disaster for anyone who follows that. But they are going to say, being as loud as possible, they will sound very confident, and you will just go on and do that. Or you will just believe that, this is the right thing to do because, well, they were very confident about it. These confident soldiers find their followers as easily as you find your next distraction, since they are just confirming their audience's existing beliefs. And what are those beliefs? Their scriptures, their political beliefs, their idea of the world, their view of how the woman should behave and dress, their opinion about the duty of the man. Yes. Either on the left or right side of the political prism, the individual freedom and liberties are losing against these communities of the losers who are certain about how the world should work and how people should behave. You must be part of either one and accept them completely, or they reject you. You can be right about one thing and wrong about another. This idea never crosses their mind. Okay, yeah. This is what I wrote on Substack. You can follow me here, Coffee with a Thought on Substack. Okay, if you want to stay in touch with me on Substack. Thank you for watching, everyone.